is a program called Move Information, Not Property, from the U.S. Department of Defense, Rodney Muskin and Sherry Lowe.
Thank you. I am happy to say that I am here representing and work for the Defense Reutilization and Marketing Service, and our mission is to dispose of DoD's excess personal property. I'm here specifically to talk about one of our many missions, which is the reutilization, transfer, and donation of this property and how we have advanced the program with technology. When an item is no longer needed or becomes obsolete to a military unit, it is turned into one of our many disposal offices that are located throughout the world. Our mission is to try to match that item with a customer to ensure that their needs are met, and it also provides as a cost avoidance in lieu of new procurement. Our role is to maximize the reuse of DoD's excess and surplus personal property, first and foremost to ensure that there's not another DoD agency that has a need for that item, and also to transfer it to other federal government agencies, and then the item becomes eligible for donation to state and local government offices as well as eligible nonprofit organizations. We also provide support to specialized programs, and this year alone we have supported about 23 states in disaster relief efforts, working with FEMA, the Red Cross, and the National Guard. We work with thousands of law enforcement agencies to get them equipment and supplies for their counter-drug missions, as well as sending medical supplies and equipment to third world countries for humanitarian relief efforts. So as you can see, our agency also supports all realms of the government from the local level on up to DoD. The challenge that we were suddenly faced with was agency downsizing, stringent budget cuts, massive base closures, and overall inventory drawdowns. We were literally getting inundated with excess property, and we had to find a better way to make the property assets more visible and more accessible to our customers, as well as reduce the need for the customer to use expensive, time-consuming, and traveling to our disposal sites to physically walk through warehouses and inspect and order property in the hopes that they would find the equipment or the item that they needed. They were basically hindered by a geographical location within a driving distance when actually we had an inventory that was standing around the world. The solution that we came up with was to create a web-based property disposal system, and we placed our entire $21 billion plus inventory on the internet. The results was an immediate increase in the reutilization, transfer, and donation of this property. Last year alone, we reutilized $3.7 billion worth of property back to other DoD agencies, another $680 million of equipment back to the federal government, and $575 million worth of property to the donation community and customers.
Some of the challenges we faced was keeping a system that was open, that was timely, and that was easy to operate. What we did is brought in our customers. We says, how can we make your job easier while in the same term making our job easier? The customers had great input. They had lots of ideas. Some of them were very interesting. I wish we had time to get into some of those stories. We sat down with our customers. We went back to the drawing board without expanding our staff, without buying any additional equipment. We put together this web-based system back in '94. We went to a meeting and we asked our customers, does this fit your needs? One of the guys sat down at the terminal. The first day was in operation. He punched up a screen full of information, grabbed a telephone, and said, hold that clothing for me. It was the Veterans Administration. I said, why do you want 25,000 units of clothing? It was for the homeless. First minute of operation, we had a success story, and it's been never-ending since. Some of the fascinating things about this, it keeps growing. We have added technical data that we've gotten from other computer systems without having to spend millions of dollars. We have added pictures to our database from our field operations with simple digital cameras. We have been able to increase our business from about 1 million searches a year, the first year of operation, to over 6 million searches in our database per month at this point. And it grows every month. At this point, I don't see any end to it. I thought it would have plateaued by now, but I've been proven wrong.
I was a little confused by the data that you presented, that in the first year, 1994, I think, you said that 11.5% of the material that you had in inventory was redistributed, and last year 14.5% was redistributed. That doesn't strike me as, given the availability that you've now provided, the universality really to the world, as that great an increase in actual consummated transactions. And I'm wondering why you think it hasn't been exponentially greater.
Well, you have to understand when you look at our inventory and we say a $21 billion inventory, historically 40 to 50% of that is only really scrap material content. It's wore out. It's only worth its metal content. And what we've shown during the last 3 years is an increase in the electronic screening and ordering via the internet. This last fiscal year, which we just ended, we utilized 21% of our inventory of the usable equipment, 21%. And we also can see a dramatic increase with the DoD, the military users, the military customers, with their screening and electronic ordering. 97, of course, the military requisitions property through a system called Millstrip. In 97, I think 37% of the orders came through the internet, and it doubled that the next year. And so I do think that it's relatively an educational process to engage the customer, to get away from physically going down and kicking and getting a trust factor in ordering over the internet, and I think it's just starting to get to that point.
How does the private sector get involved? How are they involved in this process? How can they become a player?
Excess property has many rules and regulations and laws. There is a disposal cycle that is followed with each item. It goes through a 21-day screening process for DoD and federal agencies. Then it is declared surplus to DoD. It becomes eligible for the donation community, the state and local nonprofits. At that point, it is deemed that there is no use for that item within the government, and it is referred to our sales department, and it is offered for public sale.
Still on your website or on your...
Yeah, right. It is still on the website. We have online bidding. We have various ways of selling the different commodities.
I must say, as I read through your application, I couldn't help but wonder how much fun Radar O'Reilly would have had. My question is, other agencies, there are other agencies obviously that generate surplus. Are they able to bring that into your network, or would they need to create their own networks? Non-DoD, I'm talking about non-DoD generated surplus inventory.
The system that we developed is very compatible to incorporate any other federal agency that does disposal. We do in DoD about 80% of the disposal for the federal agencies. And actually we do some minor disposal for other federal agencies when they request our services. So yes, our system...
So you're already doing it. You aren't.
We could be expanded and adopted even by state governments within their own government. They could use the same system or same concepts.
The question, I was curious about whether this has won a Hammer Award.
Yes, it has.
It has won a Hammer Award. And do you have any sense of what kind of ultimate savings that you've produced?
That is one factor that we have difficulty trying to measure, because excess property ranges from military unique items down to your off-the-shelf, and it also ranges in various condition codes. It can be unused to. And your different agencies you deal with put a different value on that item, whether it's used for target practice or used for its intended purpose.
But is there any way to compare what life would be like without the system? That's what I'm really trying to get at.
We have several letters from our customers of the amount of time and money they save from not traveling, and that is showing a significant amount of savings. It's the customers that don't tell us how much they saved is what we're trying to find out, and that's a hard number to gather.